Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Gruver. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason Mefford.
And I am Kathy Gruver. Welcome back to, I guess we dropped these on Thursdays. So welcome to a Thursday.
Yeah.
So I was going through that list of those little prompts that came out of that journaling thing that I had. And one of them that popped up that I honestly have never seen before, or it was not conscious of me before, was, do you have a nemesis? You know, like we're superheroes or something. And I know a lot of people, and I do know a lot of people who have a nemesis or nemesi, if you've got more than one, I guess. And I thought this was going to be an interesting conversation because I did have a nemesis, and he was a little crazy, and he was a little stalkery, and he tortured me for a very long time when I first moved to Santa Barbara. He was very nasty to me on social media and sent me very abusive, nasty emails. And because he was a media person here in town, every event I went to, he was there. And I found it very intimidating and very scary. I didn't feel like I was in danger, but he was just an intimidating presence. So that was why I stopped doing a lot of mixers and stuff here in town, because I was afraid he was going to be there. And if he would cover an event, I wouldn't be mentioned, even if I was there. I won this big award. He didn't mention me in the article, even though I took one of the big awards. And just everybody knew him to be kind of a dick. And haven't thought about this guy in forever. And a friend of mine messaged me yesterday and said, hey, isn't this the guy we don't like? And it was an obituary. And it was this guy. And my first thought was, wow, I hope he's at peace. It wasn't good riddance. It wasn't, oh, thank God the dick is dead. Ding dong, the dick is dead. You know, it wasn't any of that. There was just this compassion of, wow, I hope he's at peace. And for me, that was like a kind of a surprising response. Like there was almost this sadness, because I know for the last couple of years, he's had kind of a miserable life. I think at one point he actually ended up in jail, and he's gotten fired from every job. And, you know, it was a very sad situation, even though this guy terrorized me for so many years. But I had this little glimmer of compassion, and literally my response back to her was, that is him. I hope he's at peace. And it kind of surprised me. And I went, wow, that was not what I would have expected my response to be. So there's my nemesis story. So I guess I'm now nemesis free, other than my own self, right?
Well, but actually, I mean, again, you know, we said when we started this, we don't know where it's going to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's interesting. You know, like you said, you've had this list of prompts, and you've been looking at it for months as we've gone back and forth to get some ideas for podcasts. So isn't it interesting that today of all days, that one jumps out at you?
Yep.
Right. And so that we're talking about it, because actually what you said is really beautiful. And I want to get more on that too.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, again, maybe some of the people that are listening might not know what nemesis is, if that's not your, you know, if English isn't your first language, you're somewhere else in the world, right?
True.
But think about, you know, Kathy made reference to the superheroes, right? Because there's always that in the superheroes. The superhero, you know, Batman has the Joker, right? So they were the nemesis, you know, Superman, Lex Luthor, right? Jerry Seinfeld and Newman.
Oh my God. Hello, Newman.
Hello, Newman. Right? I mean, we actually saw the actor who played Newman. I can't remember his name, but he was in something else that we were actually just watching last night, and it was like, oh man, hey, there's Newman. You know?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's what's funny is
Wayne Knight.
Wayne Knight. There we go. Great actor.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's what's funny, right? Is that some people, you know, they have these nemesis, and sometimes it sucks all of their energy, right? It sucks their energy, and then depending on how they choose to respond, sometimes these nemesis relationships kind of go tit for tat, back and forth, right? And I think what's interesting, you know, again, like you said, for whatever reason, this guy had a hair up his ass against you. I don't know what it was. Maybe he wanted to sleep with you and you wouldn't give him the time of day. I don't know. I don't know what it was, right?
Yeah,
But there was
it wasn't that, but yeah, I mean, yes, good point.
I don't know, right? There's some reason why he didn't like you, right?
Mhm.
And obviously the things that he was doing to you made it so you didn't really like him either, right?
Yeah.
Now, in a lot of times those relationships, someone will hurt someone, the other person will hurt the person back, right?
Mhm.
Now, when you get into those situations, that just becomes really toxic and it just eats and kills everybody,
Yeah.
right? So as you were talking and sharing the story, I thought it was interesting. And again, good on you, Kathy, of, you couldn't avoid this guy completely, but you just tried to avoid him and just not be where he's at. Try to set a boundary so that he couldn't hurt you anymore, but you weren't
Mhm.
trying to hurt him either,
Right.
right? And what I found was so beautiful is that your first response was, I hope he's at peace,
Yeah.
which to me means, again, even though for a short period of time there was maybe a nemesis feeling or relationship,
Mhm.
but you gave that up a long time ago
And I didn't even know.
and you didn't even know.
Didn't even know I did, because it was the joke of, oh, if he's crossing the street, oh, what if my foot slips? I mean, that was kind of the joke of, oh, I'd take him out in a second, because of just how horrible he was to me for so many years. And I haven't thought about this guy in forever. And the first thought, I mean, like I said, I stunned myself. It's like I kind of went, oh, that's not what I expected. And when I texted my ex, who he was with me through the horrible torture, how terrible this man treated me, his first thing was, oh, is that the guy that made your life hell or whatever he wrote? And I wrote, yes. And he wrote back, good riddance.
Mhm.
But it's interesting, because don't we get so defensive of people who are hurting those ones we love, right?
We
So
do.
for my ex, all he saw was, this guy's terrorizing my wife. So to him, good riddance was his first thought.
Mhm.
To me, it was, I hope he's at peace. It's just kind of weird. And it's not an evolution, it's not like I'm better than him, or, because I totally understand why he said that. And I'm surprised that wasn't my first response too.
Yeah, which, like I said, I mean, sometimes we've processed and we've moved on and we don't even realize it.
Yeah.
And so I think that, obviously the fact that you hadn't thought about this guy for years, you'd kind of moved on, right? And
Yeah.
and the problem is, a lot of times when people have nemesis or people, another term that I like is a petty tyrant, which is interesting. It's like the person who's always kind of like goading and prodding you and just
Mm-hmm.
pissing you off all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a lot of times those people, we learn a lot from them, because we
Yeah.
have to learn how to manage our emotions. We have to, learn how to tactfully respond or set the boundaries or tell them to go fuck off when it's time to tell them to go fuck off, kind of
Yeah.
a thing, right? And just grow emotionally and spiritually from it, because they're one of those challenges that we have to push through, we've talked about before.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is, forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you, right?
Yeah.
I've heard that a lot, and it is so true, right? I mean, there's so many people that, you could have held on to that for years,
Yeah.
of having those bitter feelings, but does it support you? Does it help you? No.
In fact, it was really interesting. The last time I saw him, there was one of those shared workspace places that had just opened in Santa Barbara. So this was many years ago. And I bumped into the owner of this place, or the manager, and I went in to do a workshop there. We were using the space. And I showed up to do the workshop, and I get everything set up, and I've got my PowerPoint ready to go, and people started to arrive. And this guy worked out of that space. And I looked across the room and kind of thought, oh, shit. Because it's that avoidant part of me, right? Of, I don't know if he's going to say something. I don't know if he's going to stand there during my talk and leer in the back and try to screw me up. I don't know. And I had the ability to just kind of go, okay, well, he's here. I don't have to pay attention to him. I don't have to respond to anything he's doing. And I was able to just like compartmentalize myself into, he's probably going to avoid me too at this point. And he did. He took the wine and the cheese that was for the event that he wasn't at, and then left, which I thought was kind of like, oh, this guy, oh, guess he's taking that for free. And he disappeared, which made me feel better. But it's like, none of us like conflict. And when you're doing workshops and talks, we want to be around people who are supportive of us. And I knew that he was not going to be a supportive figure. So I was happy he left. But that was the last time I saw him, was probably 6-7 years ago. So interesting. So, well, who's your nemesis, Jason?
Well, I don't, there's I know as you were talking about that, I don't know that I have a single person, right? I mean, it's typically what I do is, if people or relationships no longer serve me, then I create the boundary. I move away, right? Or they rotate out of my life, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm changing, they're staying the same, or they're changing, we're both changing. And so I don't really have anybody external, from a person
Yeah.
perspective who I think would qualify as that. But the thing that I do have is my higher and lower self, kind of going back and forth, right? Because as I'm trying to grow and develop and evolve myself, right, there's always the 3D, the temporal person of me who's trying to kind of hold me back, right? And again, depending on whether we're talking about this psychologically or spiritually speaking, you might use different words, right? But for a lot of people, something that might make sense is the ego, right? Yeah. And so my 3D ego is kind of my nemesis. The emotions of things like anger and fear and jealousy and greed, right? That my body feels, because I'm in a body. It's just part of being human on this planet, right?
Yep.
But those are emotions, those are things that we have to work through. And again, it's that's what I would see as my nemesis or my enemy. But what's interesting, because I think as you were talking too, that this can kind of be a reframe, whether we're talking about, me, myself and I
yep,
having our little struggles, or, you and your nemesis, or people listening and another person is the thing. Because as you were talking about the guy, the thought that came into my head again was hurt people, hurt people.
Yeah.
Hurt people, right? I mean, most of the people in the world who are doing things to hurt other people, it's because they're hurting.
Absolutely.
Right. Most of the bullies that are out there, they've been bullied. And they don't know what, that's what they've been taught. That's what they lived, right? And I think it's synchronistic that you use the word compassion when you were talking about him too, because I think when we can start to see those nemesis, or whatever it is that we're fighting against, working, against, if we can see it more with the compassion side of it, and realize that whatever hurt there may be inflicting towards us or throwing towards us, it's because they're hurting. And if we can have compassion for them, again, I'm not saying, we go give them a big hug as they're trying to hit us in the face.
Right. Or you roll over and be a doormat.
But, even, myself, right? I mean, again, my body, it's trying to protect itself. So when it maybe feels things that are unusual, or it experiences something that's a non-ordinary reality, it's like, what the fuck, right? Save me, protect me, right? We can have compassion, again, and realize, hey, it's okay, this is going to pass, right? You don't have to freak out. I know, I understand, right, that maybe you're having a hard time with this, but everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay, right? Because we understand why that happens. And we've talked about the subconscious and the conscious, and about, trying to protect
self
this.
And the ego states and
and again, it's part of the process, right? We don't learn unless we go through the process, right? but I think just even that slight reframe that I've really been doing the last couple of years, especially, is just having more compassion and love for other people, but also for myself when these things come up.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, as much as he scared me and hurt me, how many times have I hurt myself with negative thoughts or with taking action before I actually thought about through what I was doing, or by making choices that ended up not being great for me, or by whatever. We hurt ourselves all the time. Can we have compassion for that? Can we have compassion and forgiveness for the times that we have hurt ourselves?
Yeah, because what's interesting is it's always easy, and we're much more aware when somebody else is doing it to us.
Oh, sure.
Right? But we're not usually aware when we're doing it to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like in that instance, and this is not calling you out because I'm saying it about myself too, but we all do more to hurt ourselves
absolutely
than any other nemesis does to us.
Yep.
Right. We're just not aware of it or realize it, but can we have some more compassion about that? So,
because the antidote to shame is compassion. And shame drives so many of our choices and so much of our reality. So yay. Well, one of those prompts that we didn't know where it was going to go, and it ended up being a great conversation. So find a way to have compassion and forgiveness, and understand that everybody's doing the best they can with the tools they have. And it might not be what you are looking for or what you want or need in that moment, but everyone's doing the best they can. So I'm Kathy Gruver. I can be reached at kathygruver.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So go out and have a great week. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.